This is COLM for IFLTV. Edward, obviously, just the pressing issue that's just come out in the last 2 minutes, maybe on Twitter, that Madrimov and Ortiz is off. Just your reaction to that?
Yeah, devastated. I think it was a great fight. For Madrimov, obviously, you've got the Bokacic fight that fell through, and now the Ortiz fight falls through, and it's devastating. Thought you could pull me on that one, didn't you?
It was numbnuts as I did.
I'm just too sharp for you. Like, what do you think? You do know that although I haven't been on my phone because I've been doing 3 hours of media, that news would reach me before it reached you. Even if someone just tapped on the window and I went like this and pulled this thing back and there was a post-it note saying Madrimov Ortiz is off, Eddie.
I knew about Schofield before you, though.
Mate, did you? You ain't got a Scooby.
That was true, actually.
Who was it? Listen, I just turn up. I look all surprised to you. Oh, guys, you're joking with that breaking news. I would never have known. I knew your name before it was even on the birth certificate.
I need to speak to my mother about that. Ed, we're going to do something a little bit different.
Oh, brilliant.
Not going to talk about this fight week at all. You've done 3 hours of interviews about that. I want to bring it right back to the start for Eddie Hearn. So, whenever you were a kid, obviously the silver spoon kid, I imagine you to be a bit of a pest. Just give us an idea as to what Eddie Hearn was like as a child.
I would say I was always a good kid. I always had a good heart. I think when you get older, you start to look back on yourself and you probably start to understand why you behaved a certain way. So at school, I always wanted to be centre of attention. Yeah, like my dad was Barry Hearn. He was a showman. I was quite a cocky kid. Like I was born. My first house that I lived in was actually in Ongar, which is a place in Essex. And at about 4 or 5 years old, like this was around the time when my dad started to make proper money. We moved to what is now the Matchroom HQ. So that was my house from like 4 years of age. So, but you got to remember at the same time, like when people call me a silver spoon kid and all that, and it's a little bit tongue in cheek, but not always. My mum and dad came from nothing, right? So when you first come into money, and they started to make money, or my dad started to make money when I was young. You don't just turn into, oh, hello. Like my dad's from Dagenham, right? He's from a council estate in Dagenham. Like I wasn't at the Matchroom HQ and like I had like maids and like butlers coming and going, good morning, Edward, would you like caviar with that? He was like, here's some ready brick, stick it in the microwave. Like what? It was a normal upbringing. Do you know what I mean? But my dad was very flash. My dad was a lot flashier than I was because he made money and that was what he always wanted because he was from a council estate. And when he made it, he lived a life. Ferraris, Porsches, limos, like, do you know what I mean? He was like really brash with it. So when I was at school, I wanted to be centre of attention. With that came me probably becoming quite unlikable. Like around teachers and stuff like that. Not around my group. I was like, but probably, sort of carried my weight around. Like, I was quite not boisterous, but like flashy and like, So, and I went to a school where, like, I could be the main man because it was a private school. Like, if I went to a rough school, probably would have got a pasting. Do you know what I mean? So. But I was always all right. Like I don't feel like I was ever a bad kid. And then when I finished my GCSEs at Brentwood School, you needed to get 6 GCSEs to be allowed to go into the sixth form. But basically, anyone that was good at sport, if you were close enough, they'd kind of let you in. And I was very good at cricket growing up. Like I played for Essex for 6-7 years. I was in the first team at Brentwood School when I was young, and I got 5 GCSEs between A and C. So I was one short, plus all the others at D's and E's and whatever, but they're not real passes if you're honest. So my old man went up to school and he was like, look, I know Eddie got 5, but I've sponsored a few things over the years, and let's be honest, his cricket's good, like you need him. So we're all right to carry on to the sixth form, and they went, no. And he was like, what? I said, sorry, And I think they really wanted, like, I wasn't exactly flavour of the month. And I thought they probably thought this is a good way to just give him the elbow. So I had to go and do my A-levels. And I never really, all the other schools, don't think I had the GCSEs to get in. So I got to a point, and I was like, a few people I know went to Hearn College in Romford, which really didn't have the best reputation, if I'm honest. And I said to my mum, I'll go there. She's like, oh my God, you can't go to Hearn College. You've been to Brentwood, and how will you survive? And I'm like, don't forget, I grew up around not bad people, but interesting people. I was at shows every week. Like, I'm in the boxing world, right? I'm not going to like social events of polo and stuff like that. I was in York Hall selling programs. I was in Romford every day at the Matchroom gym. So I was a normal kid in some respects. Anyway, went to Hearn College, and within the first week, I would say I did business studies, media studies, and PE at A-level. People think PE is an easy A-level, it ain't, because it's biomechanics and chemistry, anatomy. And after about a week, don't know if this is a boring story or not, but after about a week, the numbers in my classes halved, because people just left, or they were just downstairs in the canteen, outside smoking weed, whatever. And I said to my business studies lecturer, Mr. Furness, I said, can I ask you a question? I was like, what happens if you don't turn up? And he went, well, then you won't get an A-level. It's up to you, isn't it? I was like, yeah, but like, I come from a real disciplined school of like detentions, and if you say the wrong thing, it's detention. And I kind of rebelled against that. Do you know what I mean? I was like, oh, why are they always picking on me? Well, when in reality, I deserved most of them. But then I was in this other system where there was like no discipline. And you could do whatever you want, and no one really cared. Like, you wouldn't get told off. Don't worry about, well, you're wasting your life, aren't you? And the amount of friends I had at Hearn College, I was about that. There was one geezer called Phil, who I've never seen since. Someone actually DM'd me the other day saying they were in my business studies class. But other than that, I can't actually remember the name of anyone at Hearn College for 2 years of my life. And at break time, God, there's a lovely little bakery by Hearn College on Ardley Green Road, right? What's the pub there? On Ardley Green Road, you come out, you turn right. Was it the Checkers or whatever it was just down there? The Drill. No, it weren't the Drill. That's the other way. So, yeah, then I used to go, finish my lunch. When lunch would come, I'd go down to the bakery. I'd get a French stick, right? It's about that long. And I would have roast turkey and ketchup in a baguette every day. No wonder I was a porky kid. Then I'd go straight back to the library, and I'd spend every break and every lunchtime in the library doing work, studying. Because I'd no mates. And in the end, it's just like, I don't know what it was. It just something clicked with me, where it was like, when I weren't rebelling against the discipline and the authority, I was like, you've got the only person that can do this is you. And I got an A and 2 C's at A-level. I swear to God, if I was at Brentwood School, there is no way in the world I would have even got a C or close to at A-level. And then I went into work for a sports marketing company, athlete representation company. And that really changed, I think, a little bit of, I don't know, it's work ethic, or I've always been a grafter. I've always been taught that hard work is the only way. And you don't get anything without working your bollocks off. That's what my dad's always taught me. It's the best thing that was ever instilled in me. But that school and that college, I always look back on that moment. It's weird, because my dad said to me, my dad is money mad. Money mad. Everything is about money. And happiness is basically defined by how much money you've got. That's him. I disagree, right? And I always have rows with him, but that's just how, where he's come from. He just thinks money solves everything, which, there's an argument. But he's always motivated me with money as a kid. I used to count money. He'd empty his pockets, put his coins on the side. I'd be putting it in my jar. That's how I was educated. And then when I ballsed up my GCSEs, he said to me, listen, because he thought if I offer him a load of money for his A-levels, he's going to get his nut down. So he said to me, I'm going to do something with your A-levels. He went, every A to C, I'm going to give you £1,000 a pass. I mean, you're talking 25 years ago, right? I went, what if I get an A? He went, you ain't going to get an A, are you? I said, all right, what if I get an A? He went, if you get an A, I'll give you 10 grand. I was like, and that day those A-level results come, and I opened it up, and it said, Media Studies, A. I was like, I can't believe it. He was away, he phoned me up, I went, how'd you get on? I went, oh, I got 3 passes, and not only that, I got an A, 10 grand. He went, you what? He went, what'd you get an A in? I went, Media Studies. He went, oh, fuck off, I'm not paying for Media Studies. I was like, what? So he just gave me a grand instead, so I got 3 grand instead of 12, but, you know, that was his way of motivating me. And I you know, so yeah, that was me, really, growing up. But throughout that period, especially being in Havering College, I spent all my time in Romford, which is where the Matchroom gym was. But even before that, my dad started promoting boxing. Really, his big break into boxing was Bruno Bugner at White Hart Lane. I was like 8 or 9.
Is that your first boxing memory?
Yeah, because he'd never been in boxing before, and he just went, I want to do a big show. So he reached out to Frank Bruno and to Joe Bugner. He didn't even represent them. They had their own promotion, like promoters. You imagine a world now where some geezer comes along and reaches out to AJ and, I don't know, Tyson Fury and makes the fight without, and all of a sudden the promoters are phoning him up going, what are you doing? Oh, he's under contract to me. Anyway, they made the fight, and it, like Ben Eubank 1 was 1989. I was 10. Ben Eubank 2 was 1993. I was 13, 14 or 1992. And all of those fighters, you know, Naz when we had him, Eubank, Lennox down at Brentwood Centre, you know, the Delaney's, Francis Ampofo, who was a big hero of mine, Jim McDonnell was a massive hero of mine. Like, people don't realise when you see Jim McDonnell. I used to go around his house when he would come to my house and run around the fields with my dad, Jess Harding. You know, I would go to Jim McDonnell's house while he was in camp, and his wife Kim would make me kiwi fruits because that's all Jim used to eat. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm talking about I was 10 or 11. Francis Ampofo, you know, I'd go over Spurs with him, and then we'd go for a pizza after training in Romford, and, you know, he'd take me down to Bethnal Green High Road with his mates Joe and Sherman, and we'd sit in their trainer shop and mobile phone shop. Like, I grew up around boxing, and it was so exciting for me because I was really a normal kid living in a massive house, you know.
Did that inspire you now when you think back to stay in boxing? Was that always the goal, or was there something that changed?
No, I mean, so, you know, probably 8 or 9, I started to find boxing. And then around, although people take the piss, but, you know, people like Jim McDonnell and Francis Ampofo, they were there for my amateur fights. They were only ever gym bouts. I was never carded, but I had 3 gym bouts, and that was at Billericay Boxing Club. And I went there from the age of probably 12 to 14, and then came back for 6 months at like 15. Took a bit of a pasting and just didn't really fancy it anymore. But originally, I was like, throughout this stage of being around boxing, I never once thought, oh, I want to be a promoter one day, or I'd love to follow in my dad's footsteps. I would have, probably at that age, I was thinking, I can be a fighter. You know, I would watch these guys, and I would go down to Charlie Magri's, and I would get all the gear, you know. Billericay was blue. I'd have like these satin shorts and these Lonsdale boots, and like I had a gown, and I was fucking pretty useless really, but I thought I was unbelievable. But I never thought, oh, one day I'd love to be a promoter. Even when I started work, don't forget, you know, in my very early 20s, Matchroom were pretty much out of boxing. My dad had completely lost the love for it. He just decided he just wanted to do darts really because it was so much easier, such a nicer environment to work in. We were doing prize fighter. We had some dates on Sky, but my dad was just giving them away to his mates, really. Tommy Gilmore and other promoters that he worked with. So we were out of boxing. And when he left boxing, like, I saw what boxing did to my dad. You know, I mean, obviously it made him money, but as a person, the person he become or is now without boxing is very different to the person when he used to work in boxing.
Can you elaborate?
Just angry, stressed, short temper, like just rowing all the time like that. When my dad was at home, he was always very good with me. We'd play sport, right, when he got home from work. And then at like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, he'd go into his study and he'd work all night. But during that period, I would sit in the study with him. So he'd be sitting in his big chair on the phone, and I'd be on the floor, either with a football or cricket ball, just throwing it up in the air against the wall, and like subconsciously listening, not like, but he's on the phone to Don King, Frank Warren, Bob Aaron. Fuck you, fuck this, fuck, you know, fuck. And like as a parent, because I know, because I've been stressed before in work, you're not really able to be a great parent because you're so angry all the time. And then imagine then I've got, what's that, Dad? Dad, do you want to go and play? Can we have another 10 minutes? Oh, shut up, son. Let me work. Do you know what I mean? I don't really remember those moments, but that was probably what it was like when he was working in boxing. And he had a bad temper. Like, you know, when I was a gobby kid, he'd give me a clout. Right, I deserved it, to be honest with you. But like now, chalk and cheese, not just now, but 10 years ago, 20 years ago, he completely changed when he left boxing. Completely changed. Like, and there were times when I started in boxing, I'd been in it for a few years, and like he'd walk in to my office and he'd go, how's it going? I'd go, oh, this is happening with, you know, Frotch or whatever. And he'd just look at me and go, good luck, son. As if to say, I know exactly what you're going through. But the difference is, what I'm going through was 10 times bigger than what he ever did in boxing. And that amplifies the aggravation, the stress, the drama, you know, all those things. So it's really, I'm just following in his footsteps, and I see it now. And I know when I leave boxing, I'll be a much happier person. I think, probably. Like he misses it. You know, every time he comes to a show, you can see him like, but he also looks at it and goes, thank fuck I don't work in boxing anymore. Because it's toxic, really, the business. Now you've got the world of social media and like the lies and the bullshit and the aggravation and the accusations, and like you've got to deal with that on top. Like he actually said to me when I started working in boxing, he was like, you know, actually, this social media thing, he said, it's good and bad. He said, don't get me wrong, you can talk to your customer at any time. So when we were promoting fights, we just have to go to like the underground station and like plaster posters on the walls everywhere. He said, but at the same time, we would finish a show on a Saturday night and go, that was a great show, let's go for a curry. And that's it, end the conversation. Not, you're a prick, that was a shit show, he said this, the fighter said this, what have you got to say? You guys weren't around then. Do you think he'd finish a show and do 50 interviews with YouTube outlets? He'd finish a show, literally, as soon as the show finished, one interview with a broadcaster, curry, or wherever. It's a nice world, you know?
There's so many follow-up questions, but I know we're pushed for time, so I'll go to a couple of the main ones. When you talk about your experiences as a child with your father, do you use those experiences then with your own kids to try and change how things are?
I think that it's generational money, right? And it becomes much harder as you go through those generations to give people not a real life, but like I want, you know, the most important thing to me is obviously my kids' happiness, but also to instill those qualities that were instilled in me. I'm not perfect by any means, but no one will outwork me. I work my bollocks off. I've got a good understanding and value for money. You don't see me falling out of nightclubs, sticking gear up my nose, spending money, wasting money, going here, going that, being obnoxious and flying around the world. I try to be as humble as I can be, and a good role model for my kids. As the money goes through the generations, and not being funny, in terms of our wealth, like compared to when I was growing up, the business is 100 times bigger. No, it's 10,000 times bigger. In terms of the wealth within the family, it's incomparable to what it was when I was growing up. But nothing's really changed, you know. But it becomes harder because the kids can't live a normal life, really. Like, everyone knows who I am. Everyone knows who my kids are. It ain't great all the time.
Do you think it's tough for them?
Yeah, I do, because I would think that they would just want to be normal. But you can't. How can you be? You know, everyone's got their perception. And my kids have got personality, like I did, you know. one's a little bit leery. Do you know what I mean? And that'll work against you as it did with me. Because when you turn up somewhere and someone goes, oh, look at him, Eddie Hearn over there, Barry Hearn, son, look at him, and you're flash with it, oh, it's like 10 top. But the most important thing for me is for my kids to find a passion for something and something they enjoy. People think that being born into money automatically sets you up for life. It's actually very difficult. Like for a kid to try and achieve within their own name and to maintain the success of what's been built, the pressures of that are actually quite high. I don't want my kids to have that pressure. But the pressure of matrimony is now on my shoulders. That's fine. My dad worked his nuts off for years to provide me with an opportunity, and I take it very personal, the responsibility I've got for the business. But I don't want my kids to have that same kind of pressure. All I want them to do is to find something that makes them get up every morning with a smile on their face and a will to live and work and enjoy life. You know what I mean? And to do it with a good heart, with good values, with manners. You know, I don't want to see a rude kid, ever. And especially don't want to see a rude kid with money. You know what I'm saying? Because there's nothing worse. You know, you're not entitled. You work everything, and you know that's why my youngest daughter, one of the most pleasing things that I've seen her do, and you know I've obviously pushed her that way, was to join Brentwood Central Boxing Club. She goes 3 times a week. It's completely changed their life. She's never sparred. She'll never box. But she's with different walks of life every single night. She's grafting in that gym. She's listening to the coaches. She's getting told off. And she comes out of there and she's dripping with sweat. And she goes, and I think to myself, good work. Good work. Because the kids coming through now, they don't really understand the graft. You know? It's all like, oh. You know, sometimes I joke with even people in the office. You know, they're in their early 20s. We've got, you know, get home at midnight from oh my God, got to be in for 9 tomorrow. Get in at 7. Because when I'm in at 7, going to the gym, and if I see you in at 7 or 7:30, I'll think, you had a late night last night, look at you. The graft, that you know, the generations now, that hard work, discipline is fading away. And that's a problem. So for them, all I ever want is for them to be happy. But all I ever want them is to understand you get given nothing without hard work and deserving. You get what you deserve. And that's why people, you know, sometimes people say, they look at successful people and they've got a chip on their shoulder where they're like, I don't get the opportunities. And you know what? Life is like that. People don't sometimes get the opportunities. But if you work as hard as you can possibly work and you stay consistent with it, there is no way you will not get a break and achieve. That is life, and that's the karma of life. But everyone gets different breaks. Everyone gets played a different hand. But all I want is for them to just understand and take that generational mindset of a Hearn, that hard graft is everything, and you never take your foot off the gas. You never surrender, and you never let any fucker beat you. Do you understand? That's how I was brought up. Son, you win, and you win by any fucking means. I don't want to be as harsh as that with my kids, but that's how I was built. Do you understand? And like when my dad called me a project, every night, you know, that's what it was. Son, let me tell you something now. You never surrender to these fuckers. Do you understand? We graft and we win. And that like, I'm not saying that's great parenting, but that's how I was built.
2 more questions before I end up in Matty Lawless's black book here. So,
It's better than asking me what AJ's next move is. You know what I mean? Oh, sorry.
Next question. You speak about your 2 daughters. You say one's in the gym all the time. What if she turned around and said to you, Dad, I want to be a boxer now. That's what I want.
Listen, I've actually tried to get her to spar, but she's just not like. That's fine as well. Like parents have to understand that walking into a boxing gym is not about being a champion. Like, and there is a big perception from parents. Oh, I'm not letting my son or daughter have a fight or get punched. That's absolutely fine. I get that, right? But what you learn in the gym has nothing to do with getting in there and sparring or getting carded and having an amateur record. It's about the environment and it's about the different walks of life that you're around. you know, my kid there goes to a private school, right? You want them to have a good education, or as best you can. At that school, generally the people around her are very, very different to the people that are around her at Brentwood Central ABC. And I love that. And if you asked me honestly, where do I think she's getting the better education? I would say in the boxing gym. How mad's that? One's costing me an arm and a leg. But you know what I'm saying? Like, don't get me wrong. Education in the classroom, of course, that's important. But I truly believe in my heart what she's learning in that boxing gym, being around that environment, will give her more qualities than what she'll get in the classroom.
I don't want to not speak about your other daughter. What if she turned around and said, Eddie, I want to run matchroom boxing?
She's the type of person that would want to do that.
Would you want her to? Because you see all the bad sides of the boxing.
I don't want, you know, I never want her to feel like she, you know, I felt I had an obligation to take this business forward and to carry on what my dad built. That's my job in life, right? And that's why when people don't really understand how hard I work, or the fact that I just never take my foot off the gas, they don't quite understand it because it's not in them like it's in me. That's what I'm set up for. So for them, I would never say, I want you to take over Matchroom. You have to come and work for the company. If that was the drive and desire in their heart, you know, and my eldest is, I think, going to go on and be probably like me in that respect of, you know, and she said, Dad, I want to take Matchroom forward to new levels, to levels that you could never take it. Firstly, I'd say, I don't know if that's possible, but I would say, if that's what you want to do, if that's what's going to motivate you, if that's what's going to drive you and give you a zest for life, no problem. But with it comes huge responsibility. And people don't realise, like, if you fail as someone who's taking over something like that, or someone that's coming in, like if I was useless and I ran Matchroom in the ground, do you know how embarrassing that would be? There's be nothing worse. Do you know what, to be honest with you, if I would have just even carried on from my dad's success and just kept going as it was, what would anyone be saying about me then? Oh, it's Eddie, and he's just cool. The business is going all right, but the fact that I've done extraordinary things gives me a chance to say I've achieved something in my own name. People will always say, "Yeah, but listen, I got a leg up, I got dealt a great hand, but I've grafted my nuts off like no other fucker would ever do." So now I'm sitting pretty. The end is probably not a million miles away. Who knows what life's gonna take you?
That moves me on nicely to my last question. Have you thought about retirement? When I done this kind of in-depth thing with Frank Smith, he spoke about he knows when he wants to leave the sport, and he eventually knows at some point he'd probably have to take the reins from you for a little while. Have you thought about it at depth?
Well, Frank Smith's not a boxing man. Frank Smith's a businessman. He's an exceptional operator. He's not in love with boxing, which is good because I am. And probably if I just relied on my passion and love for the sport, I'd make poor decisions. So he's great to have there to make those decisions with me. Frank Smith will be out well before, in my opinion, I will be out, because he already talks about, I don't want to, like, boxing's grabbed me from 8 or 9 and it's infected me. But it's not something you can just go, well, I'm done with boxing, cheerio. Frank could, he could do it tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? And I think that don't forget that when I talk about the success of the business, it's only really in the last, I joined Matchroom about, I want to say 16, 17 years ago. Funnily enough, it was about 16 or 17 years ago that we started going to new levels. Coincidence, some may say. I don't agree. But on a serious note, the last 7 years, 5 years, we've done a big investment deal. We're probably going to float the business. So Frank's going to make a lot of money. And I think when he makes that money, I think he may say, Frank loves his wine. He loves the lavish lifestyle. I can imagine him. But, like, if you look at my dad's got more money than God, right? He's in every day in his Marks and Spencer's trousers and his Slazenger socks, just loves it. He loves it, and that's, you have to do things. If you don't, he's gonna die out. It's gonna, like, your body's just gonna break down, and like, there's nothing worse than not having a zest for life, is there? And that's his zest for life, the company. He doesn't want to sit at home. Like, he likes a little fish, but he wants to be in the office. What's happening? What's happening? What? I've seen the darts tonight. Like, don't forget, every week we have 4 or 5 different sporting events all over the world. Boxing, pool, snooker, darts, fishing, it's all different sports. He's on them all, got screens up, he's writing down the results of everything, the order of merit for the darts. That's it. That is his passion for life. People don't really understand that. But to live a life without passion is to not live a life. So once that passion dies, yeah, maybe it's time to go. But I can't not be around boxing. Doesn't matter if it's in the gym at Brentwood Central ABC on a Wednesday or Friday, if it's watching one of our young fighters sparring, if it's being involved in a championship fight or an undisputed fight. It's my life.
Do you see yourself being like Bob Arum at 95 or whatever it is?
No. I doubt very much I'll be alive at 95. If I am, amazing. But I don't think I'll ever leave boxing. Like, I don't know.
Does it make you emotional thinking about possibly ever walking away?
No, not really. Because I know when I walk away, it'll be the right time. But I like the ideas of doing different stuff. Like stuff that I never thought in a million years. Like when I wrote a book. Stuff like that, I don't know, acting, TV work, political work. I don't know. Like I always like to challenge myself, and I always live on the borderline of delusion. But without that, you have nothing. If you're not deluded, then you have no ability to live an extraordinary life. You have to be deluded. And I'm unbelievably deluded to the level of, I think I can be a Hollywood actor. I honestly think I could have singing wise concerts around the world. I think I could be Prime Minister. I think I'd do an unbelievable job. But like when I say I think I could be James Bond, right? I say all that to wind up the Americans. I actually mean it. Like, if you said to me, do you honestly think you could be James Bond? I would say absolutely, and I would probably be better than Sean Connery. But I'm so deluded. I'm not.
Do you ever have these conversations with your dad? Because he's kind of like old school mentality. Does he ever say, like, hit you that clut around the back of the head?
I think that from what he's seen from me over the years, he would go, oh, shut up. And he would also go, honestly, I wouldn't even be surprised. Like, look at that thing the other day. I did the Men's Health cover. It was like the biggest cover on Men's Health. Think of everyone they've had. And little old me, some fat geezer from Essex, all of a sudden he's like, because growing up, it was always a laugh with me and my mates going, oh, look at me, Men's Health model. And I've always battled with my weight and everything over the years. And I thought, do you know what? I'm going to get on the front cover of Men's Health. And they're like, next thing, I'm on there. And it's the biggest one ever. Jeez.
Well, Eddie, look, we're pushed for time, so we'll leave it there. We appreciate your time. And, yeah, thanks as always on IFL.